Jesus made a staggering claim that has fascinated me since I was a boy, because he did not simply say, I say true things, or what I say is true. He did that. He said, I am the truth, which is a spectacular claim, and of course is absurd if it is not the case, because he was claiming to be the ultimate truth behind everything, that he had created the universe, it was made by him and for him. And the only way to test claims like that is to ask, what is the evidence for them? Now, in science, when we make claims to our colleagues and say, I believe it is true to say X, Y, and Z, they will say, can you test that hypothesis? What is the evidence for it in terms of testing? And very often, I meet people that say to me, well, there goes Christianity. You can't test Christianity. No, of course you can. You see, Jesus not only claimed to be the truth, but he claimed that if we were to repent, that is, be honest about the mess we've made of our own lives and maybe those of others, sadly, and trust him, certain things would happen. One of them is we'd experience real peace. Now, that is a meaningful thing. We would receive forgiveness, which is something we tend to know about, even though we don't admit it. We would also receive a new power to live in a way we haven't been able to do before and fight against the things that hold us down. Now, I have had this experience both in the United States and in virtually every country I've ever been in, where I meet, say, a student, and I can think of one famous example in Penn State University, where after I gave a Veritas forum, I believe it was, the student stood up in the balcony and he said, just look at me. And we all looked, of course. He was beaming and so on. And we listened, all of 2,000 of us, a huge crowd. And he said, 6 months ago, and he described how miserable he'd been, awful life. He felt there was no hope. And then he came into contact with me, actually, at a previous lecture. And he said, something you said set me off on a search. And eventually, now he may have described it in several ways. Eventually, I became a Christian, or eventually I became convinced that Christianity was true, or I trusted the Lord, or whatever, something like that. I was born again. And he said, look at me now. And it was the most powerful evidence to that whole crowd that Christianity works. And I wouldn't be discussing with you, Professor Abate, for a moment and claiming anything about this if I hadn't seen in my own life, in the life of my wife and family growing up, and in many other lives, the fact that Christ's claims are eventually justified by the fact that they prove themselves to be true in our living experience.